Hi, it's Alistair Brownlee here. You're listening to the Physical Performance Show. I hope you enjoy the interview.
Failure is not an option.
I've had my ups and my downs.
I think it's an absolutely breakthrough experience.
Welcome to the Physical Performance Show, the show designed to inspire the pursuit of your physical best performance. I'm your host, Brad Beer. Listen in as we delve into how the world's top physical performers achieve their success, as well as the highs, the lows, and the journey of getting there. Let's get ready, set, let's go. Did you meet the Queen when you got that MBE?
I did, yeah. The Queen gave it to me. Yeah, it was very special.
Does Jonny have one? Or just yourself?
No, he doesn't. Yeah, it makes it all the more special.
That's the voice of one of endurance sport's greatest athletes, perhaps the greatest of all time when it comes to the sport of triathlon, none other than Alistair Brownlee, MBE, Dual Olympic Games Champion. Welcome to the Physical Performance Show, brought to you by Polar's world-leading GPS watches and heart rate monitors, and our upcoming live stream event featuring UK-based sports dietitian Rinny McGregor, fueling the endurance athlete. I'm Brad Beer, sports physiotherapist and exercise scientist by trade and training, and founder of Pogo Physio. Each week, we'll bring you the latest and greatest information and inspiration designed to help you perform at your physical best. Of course, we do this across a range of our different episodes, expert editions, coaches' corners, interest editions, catch-up episodes such as last week's episode, and of course, a very popular featured performers. And today, you are in for such a treat with Alistair Brownlee, MBE, member of the British Empire, sharing on his career highs, lows, and learnings. By way of bio, Alistair Brownlee is the Dual Olympic Games champion from both the 2012 and 2016 Olympic Games, becoming the first triathlete in history to have defended their title. Of course, alongside Alistair's gold medals, younger brother Jonny secured the bronze in London, making history as the first brothers in Olympic history for a podium in an individual sport since 1908. And then again, Jonny's silver in 2016 once again made history for the brothers, as they became the first British brothers to ever finish first and second in an individual event at an Olympic Games. Furthermore to Alistair's dual Olympic golds, Alistair is the two-time World Series Triathlon Champion, a four-time European Champion, and the 2014 Commonwealth Games Champion. Alistair is the first triathlete to be nominated for the BBC's Sports Personality of the Year and was bestowed the honour of flagbearer for England in the 2018 Gold Coast Commonwealth Games. More recently, Alistair was a candidate for the International Olympic Committee's Athletes Commission, which you'll hear Alistair reference today. And racing-wise, Alistair has now turned his attention to long-course racing, having picked up Dual Ironman Distance race wins, a runner-up in the 2019 Ironman 70.3 World Championships, and an eye on becoming the first triathlete in history to break the 7-hour barrier for an Ironman Distance event with Phoenix's sub-7-hour attempt, upcoming in 2022. More recently, Alistair has become an author, authoring Relentless, Secrets of the Sporting Elite, a book that I highly recommend for everyone. It's a publication that Alistair spent 4 years interviewing and training with some of the greatest minds in sport to discover what it takes to become a champion. And you'll hear Alistair discuss the writing of Relentless today, his career highs, lows, and learnings, his own reflection on dropping Jonny in 2016 in the Rio Olympic Games triathlon to secure the win. And of course, we look at that history-making event, the grand final of the World Triathlon Series in Cozumel 2016, where Alistair, in what many have said, redefined their confidence and faith in modern sport by carrying and assisting heat-stricken younger brother Jonny across the line. So get set for a very special featured performer episode with Alistair Brownlee. Alistair Brownlee, welcome to the Physical Performance Show.
Thank you very much for having me.
Alistair, I think you've got a lot of records in your sporting life and life in general, but you also have the physical performance show record for the longest incubation period for a recording. So I think we spoke about this circa 2017, post Hamilton Island Super League's launch, and here we are. But mate, all good things are worth waiting for.
Well, thank you very much. Yeah, I hope I live up to the long period of expectation.
You have been very busy. Obviously, there was the book release earlier in the year, Relentless, Secrets of the Sporting Elite, which I've got on order and it's not arriving in Australia for another week or two. You've also just completed an incredible gravel trail race, the iconic Badlands race, 750 kilometres with 15,000 metres of elevation. You had some mechanical issues, but you came home in 7th place in 57 hours and 20 minutes. So maybe we start there. How have you pulled up for that, and what inspired such an arduous event?
Yeah, it was something completely different. I mean, obviously, it took 57 hours. It started, I think, only about 10 days or 2 weeks before the event. I was texting a friend of mine and saying, yeah, do you know what? I think I probably shouldn't try and rush and try and compete in a triathlon this year. Now, kind of Kona had been postponed, and I thought, yeah, actually it gives me a chance to do some other stuff that I don't normally get the chance to do. I was like, right, is there anything else, that you recommend that's kind of a good thing to do, a kind of gravel trail or something? And he said, yeah, well, the last kind of big European race, they're all bikepacking events, and there's one in the south of Spain, Granada, in 10 days' time, and it's Badlands, 750 kilometers long, mostly off-road. Loads of climbing, and I thought about it for a few days and then thought, well, you said you wanted to do challenges you normally don't get the chance to do, so do it.
You hit a mechanical, I think, or several, is that right? With you're in the latter stages of the race or the event.
Yeah, no, I got about 150 kilometres in. I had a massive puncture. I think I must have ridden over something pretty big, like nails or thorns. Double punctured my front tyre, my front tubeless, and I was desperately trying to get it to seal with the sealant. Didn't seal, so I ultimately was putting in the tubes in to try and get it to work, which didn't. I actually punctured 5 times, I think, in the next 20k as I tried to get in the tubes to work inside my tubeless tyre, and then walked my way to a town. I managed to mend the tyre by gluing patches to the inside of my tubeless, getting some sealant and sealing it with other people's gas canisters, and then rode on after that and didn't really get any of the punctures till right at the back end of the race. But yeah, that was in the middle of a desert in southern Spain. I was there through the hottest kind of afternoon part of the day. Had a horrific cramp in both my hands at one point. Actually, they both cramped up to the point where I just had 2 fists and I couldn't do anything for about 5 minutes while I ate some salt and water and sat like behind a tiny little bush that wouldn't even shade my whole body in this desert. I finally got going, and then rode most of the way through the next, I guess, 36 hours, I think, at that point.
Gosh, and there would have been, I imagine, other athletes succumb into some mechanicals, but the hard part is, as you say, it's unsupported. There's no sag wagon, there's no mechanical van roaming around. It's just up to you to get to the finish line.
Yeah, it's unsupported. Yeah, that was obviously something that was cool and appealed to me. And the idea is that you can't have any outside support, but you can stop at shops, bike shops, cafes, restaurants, garages, whatever along the way. Obviously, you need to get food. You can't carry the food for 2+ days of riding. So yeah, I did stop. I stopped at bars and restaurants and shops and stuff, and garages actually that helped me with some punctures. So yeah, it was interesting, but ultimately, yeah, you're there, you're stuck in the middle of the desert or whatever, and you're trying to think, right, how can I sort myself out so I can keep going on this race?
Gosh, some good cycling base for looking ahead to February 2022, Kona.
Yeah, hopefully. It was a lot of Ks. It's just so different to anything I've done, in 750 kilometers sounds like a long way, but you can honestly say that there weren't many easy kilometers in there. You're going up pretty serious mountains, or you're going down the other side. And yeah, I thought I would be able to cruise down the other side, give the body a physical and a psychological rest as I was cruising down. But actually, you know, with rough terrain and steep slopes and your hands and obviously your arse really start to hurt, there's not really a lot of relaxing to be done.
Gosh, so handling a TT bike for 180 kilometres probably seems like quite an easy task now.
Let's hope so, yeah. Let's hope so.
Good psychology, Alistair. And then obviously this year, another huge event has been the Tokyo Olympic Games, of which your selection process was cruelled by ankle injury and ankle surgery ultimately. That's something that I know you'd battled in the past leading into Rio 2016 Olympic Games as well. But can you just put a little bit of perspective around, I believe you had surgery in July this year?
Yeah, so since my ankle surgery in 2015, I actually hadn't had any problems at all till I think it was a Sunday morning in March or April early this year, and just came out of nowhere. And then basically since then I was battling in one shape or form to try and keep the ankle in a good enough shape to be able to train and race on it and do all the rehab and keep it in a good place. Ultimately that didn't work out. I decided to have the operation on it, which is a posterior clear out. I seem to get bad scarring in the posterior compartment of my ankle, and that causes like tethering and pain. Had the operation on that, and yeah, I've been slowly trying to recover from it since then.
Are you back to running now? Back to some running, or
no? I'm still just doing little bits. I did start running and probably did a bit too much, a bit too soon, and I've been having had to curtail that a little bit. I was aiming to try and race in Kona this year, and then with Kona being cancelled, I kind of put the brakes on the whole thing.
I mean, dealing with injuries is something that's par for the course in high performance, but you've had your long-term team there behind you through the ankle over the years, so that must make it somewhat more streamlined to be navigating it. You've got the best of the best there.
Yeah, got a great bunch of people that I work with, most of which I've worked with for a long, long time in some shape or form, which is great. Obviously, as you know, I've always been a fan of doing quite a lot of research and reading and academic reading around stuff on my own as well. So yeah, I like to kind of stay on top of these things and be involved, I guess, in the decision-making process of what the best course of action is. And unfortunately, you can do all you can do. And yeah, unfortunately, my body's getting older. It's had a pretty hard paper round, and I've got to let it, as you know as well, healing takes time, unfortunately.
It's hard, right? It's patience is not easy when normally it's do this and get an outcome. These things take time, and that's the hard part. Alistair, with Tokyo, I mean, I recall you racing a World Cup, taking it right up to Vincent Lewis in the finish, and everything was on track. You were looking good. Vincent commented in the post-race interview that you were back, and you were still only in the early part of your preparation, I believe. Was it once the pain came back that you started to be a bit concerned about your Tokyo Olympic selection, which would have been your fourth Olympic outing after Beijing, London and Rio?
To be honest, yeah, it's been really, really difficult. Those World Cups at the back end of last year just gave me the glimpse of starting to believe that, yeah, actually you can get back to your best and be competitive to at the point that you could win an Olympic medal. Just gave me a glimpse of belief, and I went out in the winter to train with that in mind and that belief, and knowing that a bit of luck things could go well, and actually things were going well. I was feeling fit. I was doing a very balanced kind of training program with a long-term view to the summer. I was looking after myself better than I've ever looked after myself before, really trying to tick those boxes of keeping myself healthy and being able to train. And this just absolutely hit me out of nowhere. I'd done a session the day before, had no problems around the session, went for a run the next day, started hurting and just got worse and worse, and ended up having to walk back. And like I said, one of the things I said to the surgeon and various other people, this thing did just come out of nowhere. It doesn't make sense that this is kind of chronic injury type stuff. And the reply to that was it's probably just the build-up of scar tissue and scarring around those posterior medial tendons over a long period of time that doesn't really affect it until it gets to a certain amount, and then it does affect it in a big way. So that's, I think, the back end of March or early April. And yeah, you hope then at that point you're like, yeah, well, actually maybe this is going to be a week or a couple of weeks, or get rid of it in a month, or, you know, trying everything in terms of injections, rehab, physio, massage, absolute rest, everything to get it better. And ultimately I tried everything, raced in Leeds, and at that point I knew that we had 2 slots. Obviously I wasn't going to qualify by that point. To be honest, it was a relief because I just wanted to get my ankle better.
Those that saw you on course at Leeds at the World Triathlon Series event there leading into Tokyo could see clearly how much pain you were in. You were just trying to tick the box, finish the event, but it's hard to see a champion struggling with injury.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, it's hard struggling with injury for being in that position for sure.
And then Tokyo, Alistair, you still went to Tokyo and were in the mix for an IOC athlete representation position, which seemed like another world in itself. That process, I know you were busily advocating, and because you've got so much to offer the Olympic movement, and as you've shared so publicly in the past, the Olympics has always meant so much to you. So no doubt a contribution you could make would be enormous. It seemed like it was a bit tough though, with big sports voting for their athletes, and triathlon compared to athletics or swimming doesn't have the same athlete bulk. So that must have been interesting, but somewhat frustrating, because I know how much of a contribution you wanted to make.
Yeah, I was really motivated by that role. I knew I was going to have that position or the opportunity. As being the British candidate from about 18 months, and it'd been something I'd been working quietly away at in trying to work out basically how to get votes. Not competing in a funny way gave me an opportunity to, I guess, really focus on that in a way that I wouldn't have had the opportunity when I was competing. I think I ended up with about 1,400 votes and missed out by 90. I think I put together pretty much about as good a campaign as I could have done. Yeah, and like you said, you know, in triathlon, we've got just over 100 competitors in the Olympic Games. In athletics, 1,900 swimming, I think 1,400. I think another reason is, obviously big country nations voting for their candidates, and probably countries voting kind of with each other. Yeah, it was an interesting, a really interesting and fascinating kind of snapshot into politics and sports politics. Like you said, it was frustrating, but in other ways made me even more determined to do what I can around that in terms of athlete advocacy, representation in other ways that I can, even more motivated than I was before.
Yeah, fantastic. And obviously the Olympic triathlons were run and held with the individual events, and then the debut of the mixed team relay with Great Britain taking out the gold. There must have been some sense of, as the athlete you are, as the competitor you are, bittersweet feeling. That's my country. That's part of the legacy that yourself and Jonny had really laid in place in Great Britain with triathlon. And then also, you know, the fact that your brother's winning a gold, and you know you could have contributed, but you're on the sidelines. How did you process that? Yeah,
by the time I was in Tokyo, it was completely removed from me as the triathlete, to be honest.
Okay.
I'm pretty quick at moving on, and kind of really felt like, not even consciously, but just that I had drawn a line behind that. So it felt really, really great to be in Tokyo, to do the job I was trying to do. And I was working super hard at that, but also to be a fan and experience another angle of the Olympic Games. I watched all the races, but I sat there and watched the relay with actually various IOC officials giving my so-called expert opinion and input, and really enjoyed watching it. It was exciting to watch. I think that format is absolutely fantastic. Everyone sat around me was loving the format of the race and really enjoyed it as a spectator sport. And I really enjoyed watching it, and I was proud to be British and proud to see that the British guys race so well, put together such a brilliant race, all race to, I think, pretty much the best of their ability, and deliver that gold.
It was a sensational debut. And on the Olympics, Alistair, I won't take you through London in any detail, because that's something that you've relived thousands of times post-2012. But two things jumped out, and I think I heard you mention this maybe to Greg Bennett on the recordings you did with Greg, but I think you said at one point, pressure is a privilege. And when I look back at the footage of that race, including last night, I watched a little mini version of it. And I said this to Jonny with Johnny's featured performer episode, Alistair. I was just amazed at how relaxed you guys looked from the outside on the start line. And you'd said to Greg that pressure is a privilege. As Greg said, no favourite had ever won the Olympic Games triathlon. And you came out and did it. And not only did it, I, as a lifelong triathlon fan, competitor, I still think that's the hallmark of triathlon's history. It went to a new level. How do you beat that in terms of crowds? Will there ever be a crowd again of 500,000 people on a triathlon course? And what you and Jonny did that day really redefined, in many ways, the sport. I've heard athletics competitors say that when they watched that event, the run leg that yourself, Jonny, Javier Gomez laid down, it gave them a whole new appreciation for the ability of triathletes. You must be proud of that, obviously, but I'm also curious how on earth you managed to deliver on the expectation, which was huge.
Well, pressure is a privilege is definitely not my own words.
Okay.
Somewhat of a cliche. I'm neither that creative or intelligent to come up with that. And I feigning originality is something that really annoys me. So I'm not going to claim that. And in fact, it came to me via my coach, Malcolm, who told me about it years before. I'd kind of had that concept for a while, this kind of feeling that actually being in a position of pressure is better than not, because it means you've done something to deserve it and take that as a strength. I was really lucky in lots of ways. You know, I don't say this lightly because it did take a lot of training, but I was lucky to stand on that start line knowing that I was as fit as I possibly could be on that day. I'd done all the training that I possibly could have done. I couldn't be in a better situation to go out and win that race. And if I performed to the level that I should, or even a few % off, I could win. And, you know, in races before and many afterwards, I've not been in a position like that I've been hampered by injury. And to stand on 2 Olympic start lines in that position, I do consider myself incredibly lucky. So that is really how I coped with it. If I wasn't in that position, I think it could have been a lot more difficult.
I mean, the run splits during London were something else. 14:07. Jonny mentioned you went through the first 5K and then your finish split was 29:07. That was electric running. It was the first time we'd really seen that level of running in a standard distance or Olympic distance triathlon in London, that is.
Yeah, I think there was a real era of us running quick around then. I mean, I know kind of from comparing things that I've done since, I haven't really, I never quite got back to that level, to be honest. But yeah, it just was quick. I think the year before and kind of year after, there was actually some maybe equally quick runs, but that was just a little bit stand out. Gave it absolutely everything I had, and yeah, I don't regret anything about it, but it could have been sub 29 if I'd sprinted to the finish line.
Yeah, well, you slowed down there to rightfully take a bit of it in. One thing that I found interesting getting ready for this, researching for this recording, Alistair, was you mentioned, I think it might have been on the What a Flanker podcast, that you have a bit of the blue carpet from London somewhere as a bit of memorabilia at home, which I think is a really nice touch.
Yeah, I do. It came via my long-term manager, Richard, and the organizer of the London Olympic Games, and now I've got a frame section of it, which is really cool.
Nothing from Rio, or you got something from Rio as well? Any bit of the carpet there?
Don't have any blue carpet from Rio, but yeah, I've got. When you're lucky enough to go to events and stuff over the years, you end up with all kinds of bits of memorabilia. So I've literally got tons of stuff, whether that's just the kit from the Great Britain team, or actually the bike I rode, or even the trainers I wore, although some of them have now been given away to museums and all sorts. But it's almost hard to, in a silly kind of way, throw the tri-suit that you wear in the Olympic Games away, but I don't know what you're supposed to do with it either. So yeah, I've got loads and loads of stuff.
So your bikes, have they been kept for posterity from London and Rio?
Yeah, I've got both of those bikes, yeah.
Wow, that's great to hear, and that's fitting and special as well. And on Rio, obviously you went to Rio, the expectation, trying to repeat what had happened in London. But you also had, as you mentioned, in 2015, you'd had some ankle surgery again. So, and then I believe only a few months out, you were also, circa 6 months, succumbing to some injury woes as well. So you said you're in peak shape on the start line in London, 2012, but by the time you got to Rio, I think things had gone well in the last part, but there were some uncertainties leading into it. Is that correct?
Yeah, there were loads of uncertainties. I'd had surgery the year before, injuries in the first part of that year, and I just slowly just built up and thankfully got to the right place at the right time. And by the time I got to Rio, I knew I couldn't be in much better shape. I think even though 3 or 4 weeks before I'd been in the pool doing a bit of aqua jogging because I'd had a bit of an Achilles flare up or something. But yeah, I knew from sessions and stuff things were going well, and I stood on the start line in good shape, thankfully.
Jonny had commented on his episode there, Alistair, that there was a final track session where he laid down the challenge to you in the last 800-meter repeat. And in his head, he thought he could win the Olympics. I don't know if you guys spoke about that, but then there was this magic part of his recording where he mentioned what had happened at the 5K mark, where clearly he was under some pressure, and he mentioned, commented, just relax, just keep it controlled. And that was the point, the cue where you surged. And this is the little snippet from the recording, Alistair. I'll quickly play it back here.
It was a perfect scenario for us. We'd got a small break out the swim, pushed up the bike, tied everyone's legs out on the bike, and got it down to select few of us. And we started running, and then obviously it got down to Alistair and myself pretty quickly. And after about 5K, it was obvious it was between Alistair and myself. And I just said, Alistair, just relax now, relax. Let's just get through 5K, relax. I took that as saying to him, we're in this together, we're racing together. He took that as Jonny's suffering, so I'm going to drop him. He probably saw that just me showing a sign of weakness. So he pushed on and then distanced himself, and then obviously ran for the gold medal, and I ran for silver.
That's an intelligent athlete, right? Anyone that says, let's keep it relaxed often is showing signs of fatigue. So you went for it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I don't know what he was thinking, to be honest, saying that.
You've asked him since?
Yeah, I have. And, he looks back now and says, oh, yeah, it was going well. And, yeah, I was trying to say this, we're in this together, but had the shoe been on the other foot, I am pretty confident he would do the same. In fact, if he didn't, I'd be disappointed in him.
to deliver that, repeat Olympic medals was just monumental in world sport. And then the other transcending moment for triathlon really as a sport was Cozumel.
Jonny has to win and to be sure of taking the title. And right now he seems to have lost control of his legs. And this is worrying. Oh, and he's starting to slow. And there is a little way to go. There's half a K to go. And Jonny is running out of time and is losing. He's losing his sense of direction. This is worrying. Oh, goodness me. This is a horrible sight. Jonathan Brownlee has lost it now and has staggered to a stop at the side of the course, and Alistair's stopped to help him along. And Alistair is going to try and carry his brother home. Dramatic scenes in Cozumel as the Olympic champion carries his younger brother towards the podium.
Oh my God, I cannot believe what we are seeing here. Matt, is this allowed? Is he allowed to help his brother? Is that part of the rules? I'm not too sure. We've never seen anything like this before.
Unbelievable scenes. Unbelievable scenes in Cozumel. The Brownlee brothers arm in arm, but it's not by way of celebration. But we have to be concerned about the health of Jonathan Brownlee, and they're not even on the final stretch yet.
Jonny expressed his gratitude for what you did, and on retrospect, the fact that you could have won the race that day, run to the victory potentially, and obviously you sacrifice it for Jonny. But that did change the face of triathlon in the world's eyes. That was front page news no matter where you were in the world, and there wasn't a single soul in the world that didn't look at that as a great example of sportsmanship, brotherly love, and just all things that are great about sport. So looking back, we're 5 years post that now. How does Alistair Brownlee reflect on that moment now?
Yeah, well, thanks. And thanks for bringing it up again. Yeah, it was just what happened at the time. It happened really quick. Didn't really have a lot of time to think about it. But the kind of after effect of, even now, I was in Spain last weekend for the event and staying at a hotel, and it's not you're the guy that won 2 Olympic gold medals in triathlon. It's, you're one of those brothers. It did absolutely transcend triathlon. It took us to a whole new level and demographic of people, which I think at times we both kind of struggled with a bit. And we were like, oh, wow, we've done this sport our whole life. We've trained as hard as we can. We've done everything we can to be the best athletes we can. And that's manifested itself as Olympic medals. That should be, what you get the plaudits, I guess, and recognition for. Not that that's what you do it for, but, that's where it should come from. But actually, we're getting it for this crazy moment where Jonny blew up and lost the World Championships. And that definitely took a bit of adjustment for both of us. But yeah, it's been it was interesting for us. Very crazy few days afterwards.
Jonny mentioned that he woke up the next morning. It had been one of your training mates, Richard Vargas' stag party the night before there in Mexico, and he was in bed, obviously recovering, and he woke up, turned his phone on, and his phone shut down because it was just so overloaded with what was then a flow of messages from Gordon Ramsay and J.K. Rowling and everyone under the sun, just checking in on him and also sort of saying, wow, that was special. Your phone would have been going wild too, I imagine.
Yeah, it was really mad. I went to bed late that night, very late that night. And, I had been celebrating and enjoying myself, but I really remember feeling a bit kind of down and what's gone on here? Have I done something wrong? Is Jonny all right? I was on the receiving ends of calls, obviously from my mum and worried family, and rightly so, they're worried about Jonny's health, and on the receiving end of kind of being accused of doing something wrong by the referees and whatever, that did get overturned, thankfully. But and I went to bed that night being like, oh wow, what have I done? This has been a disaster. And then to wake up the next morning and literally have messages from everyone I know, I think, it was just the opposite ends of the spectrum. It was really strange.
But in the moment, what else could have you done? Could have you, just run past your heat illness-stricken brother? The alternative actions would have been,
That's true. No one's actually ever brought that up before, I don't think. So yeah, good. That's a unique question. Thank you. That is very true. I don't think I would have got quite the same amount of publicity for running straight past him, but I think anything that I did get probably would have been bad.
Well, you would have seen it as well as we did. You were here for the 2018 Commonwealth Games competing, and on the Gold Coast, and the Gold Coast, Australia's runner Michael Shelley obviously ran to victory, and your heat-illness-stricken runner Callum Hawkins went down, and Michael Shelley obviously is not Callum's brother, but ran to the victory. And in some ways, the lay-on from that are typical normal actions for an athlete. You don't stop if it's not your brother. It probably finished Michael's racing days. The initial outcry, he's quite a sensitive guy, and he's no longer competing. So that's an example of it going the opposite way. Yeah,
I remember it well, and I know Callum a little bit. So, but I didn't know it actually finished his racing career as it was. So, yeah, that's sad. Obviously, I've been asked probably hundreds of times why I did what I did, and I actually don't know. At the end of a long triathlon, after all those 2 hours of racing in blisteringly hot conditions, I did what I did on the spur of the moment, and that was that.
Yeah, and done. And these were Jonny's comments briefly here, Alistair.
It makes you proud to have a brother like Alistair who's prepared to put competition to one side and think about health and looking after your brother. And I think it says a lot. He could have won that race. He could have earned that money. He could have, whatever, got that fame from the grand final. But instead, he chose to help me out. And I think it shows. And in times even like now, it's important to show that there are things more important than competition. There are times when we do compete, and competition is obviously really, really important. But there's also times when you need to come together and help each other. And that was one of those times that Alistair chose helping me over everything. So, thank you very much to him. Don't like saying that too much, but thank you.
Doesn't like saying that too much.
You can't say it enough.
You're listening to Alistair Brownlee, MBE, Dual Olympic Games Triathlon Champion, and now author of Relentless on this Featured Performer episode. As you know, the Physical Performance Show is designed to help inspire you and educate you towards your physical best performance. So we couldn't be prouder and more happy in announcing our new show sponsor, Polar. Polar are a sports technology company who build world-class multi-sport watches and heart rate monitors for people who take their health, fitness, and sports performance seriously. Polar have an incredible heritage. Headquartered in Finland, they have been the global driving force behind scientific wearables for over 4 decades. Polar are the pioneers in and the world leaders in heart rate measurement technology, providing athletes with the best 24/7 monitoring. And we're excited to let you know that as of today, Polar have announced that they are launching a brand new range of high-performance watches, the Polar Grit X Pro Premium Outdoor Multi-Sport Watch. For those who like to train outdoors and think of the world as their playground, the Polar Grit X Pro is designed to military-level standards with scratch-resistant sapphire glass and ultra-long battery life, providing ultimate durability for the most demanding of situations. Explore the world and live for adventure with the all-new navigation tools, always-on outdoor features, and Polar's ultimate training solutions. The watch is water-resistant up to 100 metres with unrivaled GPS accuracy and Polar's Precision Prime wrist-based OHR tracking. It equips you with the toughest watch out there. And you'll even be able to track your running power on your wrist, taking your heart wherever you go. True to Polar's heritage, the Grit X Pro range will come in 3 stunning colours, including Nordic Copper, Arctic Gold, and Black Diamond-like Carbon. And yes, the Titan, a premium edition that's ultra strength made from lightweight aerospace titanium, equipping you with one of the most beautiful and durable watches on the market. Jump over to polar.com to check out the new range where you can pre-order your watch today. Support for today's show also comes from the Physical Performance Show's Learnings membership. You can support the production of the show from just $5 per month. In return, we'll grant you access to our upcoming and live stream events in our back catalogue, including Dr. Shona Halson on all things optimising recovery and Dr. Stephen Seiler on all things polarised training. So jump over to Patreon, search for the Physical Performance Show and pledge your support. And a massive thanks to this week's new show patron, Blizzard Physiotherapy. You'll find the team based in Doncaster in the United Kingdom, so thank you for your support. And finally, support for today's show also comes from Pogo Physio's online telehealth consultations. If you are an endurance athlete struggling with bone, tendon or joint-related concerns, then our 45-minute online telehealth consultations can help get you back to your physical best.
Hey, I'm Sarah. I'm a competitive age group triathlete from Australia, and telehealth 100% works. I did telehealth with Brad for chronic sesamoiditis, and I didn't need any hands-on treatment. I had exercise prescription and load management with my training. And this, along with Brad's expertise and genuine care, got me across my Pogo finish line.
Thanks, Sarah. For now, let's jump back with this week's featured performer, arguably the greatest of all time in the sport of triathlon, Alistair Brownlee, sharing on his career highs, lows, learnings, and of course, the authoring of his recently released publication, Relentless: Secrets of the Sporting Elite. Alistair, we themed this show the highs, lows, and learnings. The highs are, obviously quite evident. Quick question around the lows before we throw into the learnings. We want to discuss Relentless because you've probably retired this show on the basis of your book, which summarises summarises what we're trying to help people with through the show. But curious, on the darkest day in your sporting career to date, has there been a single standout day that you've really battled with, or is it the season's lack of injury?
There's been a few. I think, there's probably not one day. I remember a particular bad day in 2013 when the world final was in London. I was the favourite. I was winning the World Series, had a nasty Achilles injury, and that was really tough as a day. There was points in a few years ago when I'd had injuries and really struggled for quite a long period of time, probably 2017, 18, with various other things. I was really close to retiring effectively. I was kind of literally days off if something wasn't getting better. I got told that I'd have to wear a boot on my leg, and I was just like, no, something's going to get better or I'm retiring. Wow. That was a real low point. It wasn't injuries and things around it, and I guess my kind of enjoyment of the sport. And this year has obviously been really tough as well.
If you were to retire from triathlon tomorrow, would you be satisfied? I mean, of course you're satisfied with everything you've achieved. It's a resume like no other. But there's still more, I presume, long course, sub-7. There's some big goals still ahead for Alistair Brownlee.
Yeah, there's some absolutely massive goals for sure. And on one hand, I always think and say that the 14-year-old me, well, not even that, the 17-year-old me who got told at school that London had won the bid to win the Olympic Games, at that point at 17, it felt irrelevant to me that the Olympic Games were going to be in London. And, it was cool, but it had no relevance to me. And I never mind. I didn't think I'd go once, never mind 3 times and win twice. So on those kind of terms, I feel like I'm up and I'm happy about that. But sat here today, obviously, the kind of athlete and person I am, the thing that I enjoy most and get the most satisfaction from and a massive part of who I am is setting goals, training as hard as I can, preparing as well as I can, trying to maximize everything I can, whether that's training, physiology, recovery, technology, equipment, and performing to the best of my ability. And I want to do more of that.
There's still so many potential good years, but obviously things change. What have you learned about stewarding the aging? I say that with respect because I view you as still young in years, Alistair. I remember turning 30 thinking, right, well, crikey, now I'm headed south. And then you turn 40 and realise that the 30s were young. So I still look at you in your prime, Alistair. You've still got so much ahead of you. But obviously something I observe in my professional work is the body management side of things does increase, and sometimes the juice doesn't feel like it's worth the squeeze, the extra things that you've got to do. What are you learning about your body as you are maturing, as we all are every day?
Also, so I guess firstly, it is almost like you're training with a different body, different chassis, even if the engine might be relatively similar every year. And learning to deal with that quickly and make the most of it, I think is the most important thing I can kind of do. It's obvious, but 10 years ago, I could basically go out and do I could do all the training I wanted to do. If someone said, or if I decided I want to do 50 hours of training for the next 4 weeks, I probably could do it. Now I can't train quite like that. So it's obviously maximizing the training that you need to do, training in a way to be clever and to maximize the physiology on the kind of time, effort, kind of energy expenditure, I guess, that you've got, and trying to do everything that you can around the training to maximize your kind of physiological fitness day in, day out. I think taking a bit of a wider view on things, I think is good, whereas at points in my career I've been completely and utterly, totally invested in sport. I think it's kind of good for me to have other things to kind of balance that out a little bit now. So I've got a bit more of a wider view on things as well.
And one of those projects has been the release of Relentless, but just quickly looping back there, Alistair, recovery-wise, there's a Australian Institute of Sport exercise physiologist, Shona Hallison, who we've featured on the show, and her adage is we're only benefiting from the training we're recovering from. Listening to you share snippets over the years, from the outside looking in, it feels like you do keep things quite simple with making the big things the big things, sleeping well, eating well, fueling well. Is that really the sort of foundation of your recovery strategy still, Alistair, or has that shifted as you're maturing?
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, I still believe that sleep and eating are 90 or 95% of effective recovery, but now I need those 5 or 10%. And 10 years ago, I didn't need them so much. So, everything else, massage, really effective nutrition, compression, pre and rehab, all those things I think have become more important in what I do every day.
And then, Alistair, congratulations on Relentless, Secrets of the Sporting Elite. The essence of the book's not surprising given your lifelong pursuit of excellence, not just in sport, but in life. You interviewed so many people for the book, but of all the guests that you featured, all the athletes, I should say, Mark Cavendish, Chris Froome, Paula Radcliffe, Ian Thorpe, Michael Johnson, Michael Owen, Ian Botham. Was there anything surprising that you learnt from spending time with these champions, or was it kind of reinforcing things that you look back and correlate with your own approach to sport and life?
Well, it was an absolute honour to be able to sit down and talk to some of my sporting heroes about, these subjects that I'm fascinated with and have spent so much of my life trying to work out and maximise in my own way. And I learned all sorts. I learned things that I think were completely new to me. I learned things that I think are probably new, but were kind of good to have, I guess, brought back to the front of my psyche. Yeah, I heard lots of things that reiterated the importance, that things that came up time and time again. And there's a few examples of those. I think, one thing that was a massive theme throughout the book, right from the very start, the first chapter is Ronnie O'Sullivan, the snooker player. And he talks about, obviously, if you think about Ronnie O'Sullivan, snooker genius. And I asked him about this, and he basically said, I effing hate that title. It completely belittles the work and the practice and the effort that I put in to be at my best when I need to be. And that runs throughout the book in all kinds of ways. I kind of obviously like that and associate with that. I was fascinated to learn about things that I know or knew very, very little about, still know very little about, like horse racing, the jump jockeys. Spoke to AP McCoy and Richard Dunwoody, and AP McCoy, who was a champion jockey for 20 years. So the best jockey for 20 years in a row. That includes thousands of races. I think he ends up with 4,500 race wins and obviously even more losses. So racing sometimes 3 times a day, multiple times a week, and talking to him about how you deal with obviously many more losses than wins day in, day out. And he talks about that consistency of approach for these thousands of races and dealing with it, never getting too up, never enjoying the big moments too much, and never getting disappointed by the big disappointments too much. In his case, that could be falling off the horse and breaking your spine and end up in hospital, and you've got to be back on the horse in 10 days' time. So learning about the things that I had very little appreciation of before, it was one of the parts of the book I really enjoyed.
The genius comment with Ronnie O'Sullivan, you hear, I guess, a similar term with sometimes performances for people like yourself where you might hear, well, they're a freak. They're just a freak. And it's kind of like a cheap label, because clearly there's physiological gifts, but that's all they are. They've still got to be maximized and harvested. So I've always cringed with that. Not that I've ever had that, but when I hear of hardworking athletes who leave no stone unturned in their approach, I do feel it almost discredits people at times, that label of a freak. You must have had that millions of times. Maybe not directly, but it is happening behind the scenes.
Yeah, I think it does. It discredits their work. I think ultimately in top level sport, and some sports more than others, everyone has to have a level of physical talent, and whether we are defining talent as purely physiological or psychological or whatever. And ultimately you have to go out and you have to try and maximize those, which includes working hard. And so, yeah, I think it does. It can definitely belittle the hard work that people put in. And I think kind of a bigger message than that is it goes out to people and tells other people that maybe that they can't achieve at something because they don't have those attributes right now. Whereas actually as a teenager, I wasn't massively successful in the sports that I was doing. but I enjoyed it. I kind of trained hard, had a work ethic, and slowly but surely kind of improved, moved up the age groups, and was successful.
I think I did read, though, that you won the Yorkshire cross-country title from under 13s to under 20s. That's 7 years successive straight title, Alistair.
Yeah, I did win the Yorkshire cross-country title quite a lot of times. But yeah, I didn't win it the first time when I was 11. I remember losing, coming like 7th or something. But after that, I went back determined the next year, and that was it then from then.
Got to stay hungry. You mentioned these 2 words there I think are really quite clever, psychological talents. I've observed from behind the scenes your approach to some races, and I'm always fascinated from a distance that you bring, in my opinion, a different psychological game than any other triathlete I've seen. I've often reflected and thought Alistair almost has the competition beat before I even start a swim stroke. What do you see as your psychological talents?
Mostly an ability to work hard and remove the barriers to work hard. And that includes actually enjoying working hard, being really getting a lot of joy and satisfaction from working hard and trying to be better every day. And I think secondly, ingenuity and thinking about the best way to do things. And, from being 18, I effectively devised a way of training for triathlon that no one else that I came across in the country or the world was doing, based on relatively large amounts of volume of aerobic training. And this was in the days before the whole 80-20 and polarized training and stuff. And that was completely against the system. And it came from me studying physiology and what other sports did. And I've always tried to carry that on and kind of maximizing my ability in various ways, and being able to put that in context, being able to understand and put science and technology and discovery in the wider context of being able to apply it every day. And that kind of thinking of it is something that, looking back, is something that I didn't always value as I went along, but I think it's been really important to me.
The ingenuity, it's such an interesting point. I grew up in the 90s competing as a junior here in Australia, and it did seem like every session had to be high intensity. You'd swim hard, you'd bike hard, you'd typically run hard unless it was a long run. So you consciously made a decision to, and then you'd probably run hard as well, but you consciously made a decision to do more volume that wasn't high intensity. This is before the likes of Norway's, current great streak in the world of triathlon with their polarized approach, which is very well known, and scientific approach, high loads of aerobic volume. You were confident enough and researched enough to put that into play years ago.
Yeah, I guess so. Going back actually to the mid-2000s, I was effectively going for a very polarized training approach. I didn't know it was called that. And when the polarized, it was Steven Seiler and Maffetone that came out, I think started kind of publishing a lot more work on that. They were, especially Seiler was looking at runners and kind of was back looking at as an observational study on the training that runners, really high world-class runners, were doing. Realised that they did a lot of very steady, low volume, and that was kind of published in the back end of the 2000s, I think, but I can't really remember. My reasoning was much simpler. Triathlon is effectively an efficiency sport. I need to be able to get to the last K and then win races in the last K. To do that, I need to be efficient. To be efficient, you need to do large amounts of exercise. If you can do that at a low intensity, and if that has the same benefits as a little bit of a higher intensity, you do it at a low intensity, and that allows you to do your hard stuff as hard as you can. And as long as you protect your hard sessions in the week, and you protect them, you should basically do as much volume outside that as you possibly can fit in. In
the words of Steven Seiler, keep it simple, scientist.
Yeah,
makes sense.
I guess so. All the best things in life are simple, aren't they?
Here, Alistair, performance round, some rapid fire questions. You ready? Here we go. This is a training session of itself. Training session, Alistair Brownlee most dislikes.
Actually, steady swims. I just find them really boring.
Training session most loved?
Either the local chain gang or a hard running session when I'm fit.
Favorite pre-race meal?
I literally eat anything, so like steak and chips or something.
Yeah. Who's the athlete you most admire and why?
At the moment, Eliud Kipchoge, obviously for his age, consistency over a long period of time, incredible dedication, use of teamwork, and ability to perform to his best on the big days.
Toughest competitor you've ever raced against? Who and why?
Javier Gomez, because he was incredibly consistent over all that time, and I knew he'd always be there because he was good across the free sports. So if I was down and off by a couple of percent, he was going to beat me.
Is there a mantra, Alistair, that you've consistently used throughout your career? Any consistent self-talk?
I've never really done self-talk as such, but I've always told myself, he who dares wins.
He who dares wins. Best recovery tip?
Keep it simple.
One word to describe your racing style?
Tenacious.
I was going to say relentless. It would have fitted the theme, Alistair. Yeah. How would you describe being in a zone?
Everything else in the world becomes irrelevant.
And when was the last time you were in the zone?
I spent actually hours in the zone when I was doing this bike packing race last week. It was strange. Through the middle of the night, I was riding along the Mediterranean coast, actually listening to the audiobook of The Great Gatsby, and I literally lost hours of time.
You were listening to the audiobook of The Great Gatsby, yeah? Riding along 15,000 metre elevation, 750 metre multi-day race.
Yeah, it was really strange. I stopped actually for a burger and chips because I thought if I'm going to ride through the night, I should have a good meal. And I thought, okay, I'll download an audiobook as well. And it was kind of the first thing that popped up on my Audible kind of, top column or whatever. And I just thought, downloaded it and listened to it straight over the next 5 or 6 hours or whatever.
That accounts for 6 of those 57 hours. That's incredible. Yeah. And final question in this performance round, Alistair. This is a Stephen Seiler adage that epic workouts don't make champions. But is there a hardest session you can recall over your years of competing as a triathlete since the age of 8, that young boy that just wanted to win swimming medals like his mum? Is there one standout day or session that you look back on? I asked this of your training buddy, Richard Varga, who recalled riding up a mountain, I think it was in Europe, but at the end of the day, he was absolutely fatigued and you went out and ran, I think it might have been 10 plus Ks in the dark, in the cold, in the rain, the wet, wind. And to Richard, that was like, wow, okay, that's what you've got to do. But I'm curious, Alistair Brownlee, what's your toughest training day you can recall?
I've done some massive days in terms of time, but the things that really stand out are intensity, where I've had to go to a much kind of darker place. And I've had to go harder on the local chain gang than I've ever gone in a race. So it'll be one of those occasions, probably when I was really young and just desperately trying to hold on. There's a bit of road that's near the end and you end up going this uphill for kind of 5 minutes. And I've gone to a darker, deeper place up there than I have doing anything else.
Wow. What, lost vision? Cadell Evans talks about that, where his eyesight starts to fade.
Yeah, just absolute focus on the wheel in front of me and making sure that doesn't get any further away.
Gosh, the local chain gang does have a way of pulling it out of all of us, doesn't it?
It does, yeah.
That's brilliant. Alistair, you're out of the performance round. Final 2 questions. Every guest of the show gets asked these, Alistair, and that is, if you could boil everything you've learnt through your career to date, ongoing, plus your recent publication, Relentless, into one piece of advice to help listeners of the show perform at their physical best, what would that one bit of advice be, Alistair?
I'm really sorry, and this advice is so boring, but it is so true, and that's consistency. Consistency in showing up, consistency in approach, what, all of it? Yeah, all of it, yeah. Show up day in, day out, consistency in training, consistency in effort, consistency and not those big days and not too little days. And consistency and approach to life and recovery.
So powerful, simple, yes, but powerful. Alistair, final question. Every guest of the show issues listeners with a physical challenge for the week. So what is Alistair Brownlee, member of the Order of British Empire's physical challenge going to be?
I would, since I've got into this and I did some long rides in the few weeks, just to prepare for this, I would go out early on your bike and ride all day, including into the night, and stop as little as you can. And it's just a strange, liberating and really enjoyable experience. If 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago, I would have never given this advice, but there's something about it.
So riding from morning to night.
And into the night. No, don't stop too much. Yeah, you got to just keep going on the bike and enjoy riding.
Yeah, wow. Well, that's a unique one. And if you take it on, do let Alistair know. You're easy to find. You're on Instagram occasionally. I still think your caption's one of the best, or your description, your bio, I should say, is one of the best out there. That is a serious lack of creativity displayed here. But hey, it's brilliant. That's your bio, Alistair. I'm not putting words in your mouth there, right?
Yeah, no, very true. It is my bio, yeah.
And then obviously so much coming up. The work that you do with Jonny there with the Brownlee Foundation, which from just £10 a child could experience really a life-transforming event, competing at a junior triathlon. Brownlee Fitness is something that yourself and Jonny have in recent times launched. Relentless, do purchase that book. It's a fantastic publication with many hours and years of preparation in that. And then obviously the Sub-7 project coming up with Phoenix. So when might we see Alistair Brownlee and current Olympic champion Christian Blumenfeld in the men's side of things take that on? Yeah,
well, hoping it to be May, early summer next year. And that's a super exciting project and something that I've been working really hard on. So I'm looking forward to that.
Which would be a historic day, no matter what the outcome. So, Alistair, thank you for your time. It's Monday evening there. You've already spent many hours out training today, I'm sure, and really appreciate it. And yes, the incubation period was very much worth it, Alistair.
Thank you very much. You had to say that.
So there you have it, another episode of the Physical Performance Show, and I trust and I know you enjoyed this very special feature performer episode. Now, Alistair Brownlee is not hard to find anywhere online. You'll find him over on Instagram at Alistair Brownlee. Do drop Alistair a note, let him know what it was that you enjoyed from the show. Drop a podsy while you're on social, tagging in the show at Physical Performance Show, and we will reshare those. To learn from Alistair and his brother Jonny and their team of scientists and practitioners, you can also follow Brownlee Fitness. Just search Brownlee Fitness and check out the great work of the Brownlee Foundation online as well. And do yourself a favour, pick up a copy of Relentless. This is not a paid advertorial. This is my personal recommendation. You heard it from Alistair himself. He spent 4 years interviewing some of the best names in sport on the planet: Kilian Jornet, Ian Thorpe, Mark Cavendish, Paula Radcliffe, Chris Froome, and the like. Obviously, Relentless is available wherever you get your books. A huge thank you and congratulations to our show partner, Polar, on their release of the all-new Polar Grit X Pro watch range. If you are looking for a premium outdoor sports performance watch range, jump over to polar.com and take a look at the stunning new watches. Of course, you can use the code TPPS for up to 15% off selected products. Thank you as always to the great folk who make this show possible each and every week: Daryl Misson, our audio engineer, Susan Wilkin covering show administration, and Matthew Olding outputting all things graphic design. If you are looking to better understand the requirements of fueling for your training and racing, then do register for our upcoming live stream event to be held on the 23rd of October, 3 to 6 p.m. Brisbane, Australian time, Fueling the Endurance Athlete with Rinny McGregor, former guest of the show. Tickets are selling fast. They're available from $49 Australian over at pogophysio.com.au/Rinny McGregor live stream, or jump over to the bio link for the Physical Performance Show on Instagram. If you are part of our worldwide audience and the time zone does not work for you, then rest assured a complete copy of the recording will be made available to you following the event. And you heard from Jonny Brownlee, Alistair's younger brother, during today's feature performer episode. If you happen to miss the doubleheader episode 216 and 217 with Jonny Brownlee, then jump back for those very popular feature performer episodes. You will not be disappointed. So I hope you are as inspired towards pursuing your best physical performance as I am. Thank you, Alistair Brownlee. Coming up on next week's episode, we jump over to an expert edition with repeat guest of the show, Professor Belinda Beck, who will be discussing the prevention of bone stress injuries in junior athletes. Following Professor Beck, we have a smorgasbord of highs, lows and learnings coming your way. So until next time, keep pursuing your physical best performance. I'm Brad Beer and this has been the Physical Performance Show.